Yo, you guys, this is Blacklist of the Abyss, and you're watching my review for the Irregular Magic High School, aka Mahoka Koku Naruto Say Episode 17. And I already know that this review is going to be really freaking long. I can already tell, but I guess that just means I should get started now. One thing I want to mention first, though, is that I think a couple weeks ago I didn't upload a live reaction because I was having trouble with it, and I said I was going to upload it later, but then I just completely forgot to. So, if in case you've been waiting this entire time for that live reaction, I'm sorry, I just completely forgot about it. I guess at this point, there's no point in putting it up. But anyway, yeah, that's that. Um, so, as for episode 17, it starts off with No Head Dragon, alright, and these dudes are talking about how they're going to lose a ton of money, alright, if First High wins, alright. In the anime, they said 100 million US dollars. In the light novel, they said 100 billion US dollars, which is a big difference. Uh, I don't think I could spend 100 mil. I don't think I could spend 100 billion dollars no matter how much I tried. All right, so I'm just gonna assume it's actually 100 million. That it was a typo in the light novel. Um, but anyway, they say that if First High wins, they'll lose all that money, and they'll probably either be killed or turned into generators, which are those guys you see standing around. You see number 17 later on. They're pretty much these mindless fighting machines. They don't have a will of their own. They can't even talk, to be honest. They're so enhanced that pretty much they only have the abilities necessary to live and necessary to fight. That's all. They they're mindless fighting machines, right? That's what the generators are. I think when I say fighting machine, think of like an enhanced human. Think of Lucy, from that new Scarlett Johansson movie. Not Lucy from Fairy Tale, not Lucy from Elfin Lied, but think Lucy as in Scarlett Johansson in that new movie with Morgan Freeman. Okay, that's what I mean when I say enhanced human. These dudes are like legit. They're like super freaking legit. That's what I mean when I say they're enhanced humans. All right. Um, and so in order to prevent themselves from being turned into generators, they want to sabotage Mirage Bat, both Kobayakawa and Miyuki. All right, and they do end up sabotaging Kobayakawa, which is unfortunate. But the good thing is that Mizuki had her glasses off the entire time. All right, so she was able to see spirits bursting at her CAD. Um, and I thought it was cool how Mizuki had her glasses off the entire time because Erica was telling her like, "Are you sure you should be doing this? Like this is tough, like all that visual information. It's insane how much information she would have to be taking in. Luckily, Mikihiko had a barrier up to limit it, but Mizuki said, she actually kind of blames herself for not watching when Mari got hurt when she was doing battle board, because if she had her glasses off then she could have had some proof, you know, um, that Mari was sabotaged, right? So she says now I'm not letting that happen again. I'm gonna have my glasses off this time, and I don't know if anything's gonna happen, but just like Tatsuya said, we don't know that something won't happen either. So she decided to have her glasses off for the whole thing, and it's a good thing too, because like I said, she saw Kobayakawa get sabotaged. All right, and Mikihiko agreed with her on all this, and he said that he would make sure that she was protected if anything happened. And Erica kind of teased him for it. It was actually pretty funny. So clearly that's going to go somewhere because this is the second time this whole Mikihiko and Mizuki pairing has been pushed. The first time was when Mikihiko was telling us about his magic and his family and how people like Mizuki are like valued very, very highly in his family and stuff like that. So that was the first time. This is the second. So clearly they're probably going to go somewhere with this. Um, but yeah, Kobayakawa's magic ends up failing, and Tatsuya ends up saying that she probably won't be able to use magic again. All right, and this concept has been mentioned before, but not really explained in depth. So I figured I'd talk about the way it works. All right, so imagine if someone told you that magic was real, all right? That in in another minute or so, a Dementor was going to come out. Excuse me. That a Dementor was going to come into your house and attack you, like something supernatural like that. I should have thought about that before I said it. Two supers back to back. That. Um, Imagine if someone told you something supernatural was going to happen, really soon. You'd be skeptical, right? You'd be like, I mean, it'd be awesome if that was the case, because we watch anime, we like stuff like that, but it's not real, right? But for these guys, it's the same. They live in a world where magic exists, but it's still hard to believe because at the end of the day, magic is an invisible existence. Okay, that's how Tatsuya phrased it in the light novel. Magic is an invisible existence. Okay, so people can't actually see how magic interacts with the world. They know all the theoretical knowledge, but other than that, they don't really know anything. They know they input some stuff into their CAD, and then after that, they see stuff happen, but they don't actually see how it happens. They don't actually see magic in action. They just see the end result. Okay, and along with normal people, even magicians get skeptical of magic at times. They get suspicious. It's kind of inevitable. Everyone at some point, including magicians, get suspicions of magic, and they start thinking, well, does it really exist? And Kobayakawa, she was just in a life-threatening situation, okay? A situation where she needed magic. However, when she needed magic the most, it wasn't there, all right? So essentially, she lost faith in magic. What's the point of being a magician if whenever I need it, it's not there? And she has this doubt now, all right? And once you have that doubt, you're not going to be able to get rid of it, right? Because whenever you use magic again, you're going to start thinking, like, what happens if it abandons me again? What if I'm in the air like this and I try to use magic and then it just doesn't work again? Like, what am I going to do? Like, you just lose faith. You lose faith in magic, and once that happens, you just can't use it anymore. It's a mental thing. Um, once you've doubted magic, you just lose the ability to use it. So that's how that works. It's a mental thing. Um, so yeah, Kobayakawa was pretty much done. All right. um, and after this, Tatsuya told Miyuki earlier in the episode that no matter what happens, the one thing she could be sure of is that he would never let anything happen to her. So Tatsuya, he's going to get her CAD checked, which is mandatory. They do this every round for every competition. All right, and he catches this dude in the act putting a virus onto her CAD. All right, golden electronic silkworms. All right, and dude, this dude Tatsuya. Oh man, he took this guy, pulled him over the table, slammed him down. He had his hand like this. He was about to kill this dude, but Elder Kudo showed up and stopped him. All right, and this was good. All right, it was good, but the light novel was so much better. I can't even tell you how good this was. All I can do is read it for you. So that's what I'm gonna do. All right, so. Yeah, I'm just gonna read this part of the light novel because you will not believe me at how awesome this is unless you hear it yourself. Compared to what you saw in the anime, this is much better, okay? So let me just read this. CAD examination was a procedure that had been repeated numerous times in the past few days and should be the area of least hassle or concern. However, his optimism died the moment he plugged the CAD into the examination device. This behavior was completely impulsive. The moment the board member took the CAD from his hands and connected it to the examination device and started operating the controls, instantly he detected the anomaly, and by the time he realized this, his hand had already dragged the man across the table and thrown him violently to the floor. A pained shriek rang out. Immediately afterward, an angry roar. To be precise, it was the guard who let out this angry roar, right? But an angry roar rapidly approached. But even hearing the sound was insufficient to halt his intentions. A suffocating aura of a killing intent stopped the footsteps in their tracks and draped the scene in silence. This was the manifestation of the last remaining remnant of his sincerity, emotion-wise. You severely underestimated me. The painful groan was likely a biological reaction because of the increased force from the kneecap pressed down on his chest. The board member that was thrown to the floor was so terrified of Tatsuya's demonic aura that his teeth weren't even chattering and could only lay there with spasms breaking out over his face. Did you seriously think that you could tamper with Miyuki's personal effects and not rouse my ire? Despite hearing this, any third party unaware of his family situation could not comprehend his meaning. At the same time, even if that was the case, no one would fail to understand. The sinister smile on his lips, the board member was on the receiving end of his violence. The board member who was on the receiving end of his violence had touched that which cannot be touched, the scales of a dragon. Completely ignoring the crowd around him, Tatsuya coldly spoke to the man crumpled on the floor. What did you plant inside Miyuki's CAD during the examination? That's not a typical virus. The man's face shook even harder now. This level of terror and despair went beyond someone looking death in the eye. This was the face of the condemned being read their sins in the depths of hell. So this is how you tamper with the CAD software. Owing to the rules of the competition, no CAD can avoid coming through this bottleneck. In the crowd of security personnel who arrived to subdue Tatsuya, the foremost one overheard Tatsuya's muttering and sucked in a breath. He turned his gaze on the man responsible for CAD examination, who was currently subdued by Tatsuya. The officer's eyes gradually switched from watching a victim to gazing at a potential suspect. Still, you aren't the only one responsible for all the shenanigans during this competition, are you? Under Tatsuya's knees, tears trickled out of the corner of the man's eyes as he weakly shook his head. Oh, he chose silence? Tatsuya expressively formed the fingers of his right hand into a karate chop before the man's eyes. The fingertips approached the man like the fangs of a snake. Tatsuya's right hand slowly stalked towards the fallen man's throat. Seeing this, everyone present was mesmerized by the sight, and for some reason they were all thinking about the same thing. They were visualizing the same event. The young man's fingers would easily tear through this piteous sinner's skin, gouge out the throat, and pass merciless judgment amid a sea of blood. What is going on here? Just before this tragedy could play out to its inevitable conclusion, an elder's composed voice released everyone from their stasis. There is no sense of intimidation or majesty. Instead, the voice passed over them like a spring breeze as it swallowed the towering, murderous intent and neutralized it. Kudo-sama. His demons exorcised, Tatsuya reined in his demonic aura, retracted his hand and knees before rising to bow towards Elder Kudo. Right now, now, honestly, tell me, how awesome was that? How awesome was that compared to what happened in the anime? You can't deny that was just so much. That was just so much better. I mean, it was long, but still, I mean, that was just too good. That's just too good. Like seriously, if you guys don't read the light novel, you need to start reading it because if you've liked the anime thus far, or even if you haven't liked it, just know the light novel is automatically better because of all the extra details they add in. It's just better. But that doesn't mean the anime isn't good. It's just not as good as the light novel is. All right, but anyway. Tatsuya just destroys this dude pretty much, gets stopped by Elder Kudo, and later he ends up returning to First High's camp, alright? And all the people around are like kind of cautious of him. They kind of just returned to their old selves, treating him the way they used to, really. But Miami kind of put an end to that with some sitcom comedy, which is pretty funny. Some things worth mentioning here are that Tatsuya said that he can only get angry for real if it's for Miyuki's sake. Alright, and he also said that it's natural for him to care about his sister, and that it's the only natural thing left in his heart, okay? And some people might confuse that for typical bro-con, cis-con stuff, just added in there for the sake of building up their relationship, but no, that's not just random stuff he was saying for the sake of being a cis-con, right? All that stuff he said was legit. Alright? I mean, stuff like talking about her makeup and, and everything. That's the siscon stuff. That, as a matter of fact, he probably only really said that to cheer her up. He was really just manipulating her the entire time, and Miyuki probably knew it too. Because when she said, are you kidding?" You know, because so she knew he was just trying to manipulate her, but she just didn't care. All right, but those two lines in particular, that's like not just some siscon stuff. That's legit. I want to explain how it's legit. I want to explain how it happened, why it happened, what, like, the more details about it, because you'll learn that later. I'll just leave it there and tell you that there's actual truth to that. He's not just saying it to say it. All right. Now, after this, they show Miyuki's round for the prelims. However, I want to talk about something that they skipped. It focuses on Azusa and her. It starts off with her hearing about Tatsuya doing what he did with the dude that he just completely destroyed that I was talking about like a couple minutes ago. All right, it starts with Asusa learning about that. All right, and it kind of just builds to something. It starts off just showing. Oh, actually, let me just read it for you. It's like two big points, and it does the first big point, then it transitions to the second big point. Then Miami comes into the end. I was surprised that they skipped it because it's actually pretty important, but I'll just read it for you. It's another long excerpt, but it's worth it to hear. All right, so it starts off like this. The board sent word that Tatsuya assaulted some of the staff. Upon learning this, she was more terrified. She being Azusa, she was more terrified than shocked. Rather than being surprised, somewhere in her heart she knew, if it was him. Even though they were nothing more than recent casual acquaintances, Azusa believed that he wasn't the type to act violently without cause. On the other hand, if he did have a reason, he wasn't the sort to hold back. His readiness to resort to unbridled savagery chilled Azusa to the core. Perhaps he wouldn't even bat an eyelid if the man had to die, executed with his own hands. She was absolutely terrified of that ice-cold heart forged of steel. The shock came afterwards when he shared the details behind his actions. He came across illegal CAD modifications and apprehended the culprit on sight. The tear-stricken, tortured expression on Hirakawa, the Year 3 student who served as Kobayakawa's technician, was deeply imprinted into Azusa's eyes. That sort of harrowing regret was easy to imagine and could resonate with anyone. She hadn't noticed that the CAD was tampered with. Due to this, a player suffered a major accident, culminating in an exceptional peer, possibly bidding farewell to her powers forever, and being doomed to a broken life. In the face of that, if she was in Hirakawa's shoes, she might have fled the scene and cried herself to sleep in her hotel room, Azusa thought. So that's the first point there, that it's you it's this girl Hirakawa, alright? She was the technician for Kobayakawa. And just like anyone would in that situation, you kind of just blame yourself for what happened because you didn't catch it. But then you hear that someone else was able to catch this. Someone who, as it goes on to say, it was an undeniable fact that Tatsuya was a Course 2 student and at the same time a dunce. Okay, his technical skills hovered just above passing. Yet the reality was based solely on the magician's ability to adapt fluently to various situations. Oh no, actually no, that's different. But let me just stop there. But you get the point, right? Tatsuya is a Course 2 student. He's supposed to be worse than her, yet he's catching stuff that she didn't catch, and it's because she didn't catch it that now this girl's life is ruined. So that's just like devastating right there. So that was the first point, just to hit home that point of what exactly happened with Kobayakawa, right? But the second point has to do with just Course 1 and Course 2 students and just not judging a book by its cover, because that's a point that the entire series is pretty much trying to get across. This whole idea of don't judge a book by its cover, whether it be individual people or the groups that they belong to in general. Right? It's just a point that they try to get across a lot. Right? Whether it's Tatsuya, Erika, Leo, Mikihiko, just anyone. Right? They or Course 1 students, Course 2 students, the independent magic equipped battalion or whatever it is that 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 group that Tatsuya is a part of with Kazuma and Sanada and Yanagi and Kyoko in them, just groups in general, the families, the Chiba, it's families in general, individuals in general. There's always a don't judge a book by its cover theme that's constant here, all right? And the light novel goes on to say that the reality was based solely on the magician's ability to adapt fluidly to various situations. Oh, okay, sorry. When the reality was based solely on the magician's ability to adapt fluidly to various situations, his assessment was completely inverted, so he's not a dunce anymore. Regardless of whether it was development, analysis, collaboration, or combat, his strength went beyond first class. Even if they didn't exclude his magic power and assessed him based on his ability to apply magic, he was the true valedictorian, worthy of standing atop the pyramid. Then, our grades. Course 1 students, what of these? What's the point of differentiating between Course 1 students and Course 2 students? During the 9 schools competition, after watching Tatsuya at close proximity, Azusa started seriously considering his question and remained bewildered. That was the unease coming from her faltering value system, hitherto unchallenged and held to be truth, which had suddenly become vague and untrustworthy. Azusa had never held herself as an elitist who took pride in her bloom status and derogatorily looked down at the Course 2 students as weeds. At least, she wasn't conscious of it. Despite this, her exceptional magic talent and her identity as a skilled magic high school student, she still took pride in these labels. Right, so Azusa's kind of getting to this point where I'm sure I've brought it up before, but you see people like Tatsuya and Erika and Layo and Mikihiko, and you start to think, like, what's the difference between Course 1 and Course 2? Like, just because these guys are Course 2 doesn't mean they suck, obviously, because they're proving that they're strong. So what is Course 1? What is Course 2? What does it mean to be strong? What does it mean to be weak? Because obviously it can't be the difference between Course 1 and Course 2. That determines whether you're strong or not. So I know for a fact I brought that up before because I remember. All right, but now Azusa is finally getting to that point and starting to realize, like, what's the difference, And then Mayumi ends up coming along, and she said a few things, but I just want to talk about one small thing in particular that she said that talks about the origins of Course 1 and Course 2, actually. She says, those that fully believe in their own superiority tend to be unwilling to accept that they cannot surpass someone in every way. They even forgot that the actual difference between Course 1 and Course 2 students originally arose because they needed to differentiate the grades for those who passed the entrance exam and who could receive instruction. Somewhere, somehow, Asusa's eyes widened. Her mind had gone completely blank at Mayumi's unexpected words. What did she mean forget? This was the first time she had ever heard that the difference between Course 1 and 2 students was caused by educational differences. In the end, it was still a uniform issue. In the beginning, it was simply because the number of students exceeded expectations and they couldn't change all the embroidery in time. Did you know that First High used to accept 100 students each year? They had to accept more magicians to follow international standards, so First High increased their student body size. The government at the time must have wanted immediate results. Adding new students at the beginning of the next school year would have been fine, but in reality, they added more students in the middle of the term. However, the school was unable to increase the number of educators in the middle of the term, so their temporary solution was to teach the theoretical knowledge to the students who joined in the middle of the term, then begin technical instruction during the second year. This became the Course 2 student system. However, once the Course 2 students enrolled, there was an error in the orders for school uniforms. Because of this, the Year 1 students who were temporarily set as Course 2 students had to suffer the indignity of wearing uniforms without the school emblems. This led to an unexpected misunderstanding. The Course 2 student system was meant to be a placeholder until they could enter the next level. They were simply students who were enrolled after the original spots were already filled, yet they were gradually seen as replacements. Also, the plan that called for increased students ultimately failed to provide the adequate instructors, resulting in the misinterpreted replacement treatment eventually becoming reality. This is the true face of the Course 2 student system. The uniforms also suffered the same fate. In order to cover up the error, no one bothered to correct the issue after the original plan was scrapped. This is the truth behind the matter. In hindsight, creating two different uniforms was a complete waste. Since everything is done automatically until the school emblems are fixed, it would be cheaper to have one uniform design even if the measurements differ. When she started, the words just wouldn't stop. Asusa's sincere opinion after hearing Mayumi's explanation changed drastically. The deep antagonism between blooms and weeds that had caused numerous instances of friction actually originated from such a trivial matter. These words definitely must be kept from Miyuki, Asusa thought. The outcome was too terrifying to imagine. Alright, so that pretty much explains that the origins of the Course 2 system really was just because some students enrolled halfway through the year, or halfway through the term, and there just weren't enough teachers or uniforms, so they just had to learn the theoretical knowledge then, and yeah, then the next year they would get enough uniforms, enough teachers, and then they would move up to Course 1 and actually learn what they were supposed to learn, be taught the way they were supposed to be taught, wear the uniforms they were supposed to wear. However, those teachers never came. So, and people ended up misunderstanding and thinking that these Course 2 students were actually replacements. And in order to cover up their mistake, the school just let it stick. All right. And since they never got the teachers, they never changed the uniforms because they didn't want to admit their mistakes. So they just covered it up and acted like, oh yeah, this is what we were planning the entire time, you know. So it's something as minor as that ends up being, just like Asusa said, ends up becoming this huge thing, leading to a bunch of students being discriminated against, and it's just crazy. And the reason they don't want Miyuki to find out is because if they find out that Tatsuya is being treated like crap, just because of something simple like that, and people are misunderstanding it, she would obviously be furious. She'd probably lose control of her magic and go berserk, and yeah, oh, you just don't even want to see it. Well, we want to see it, but they don't, you know, so yeah, that's it for my that's it for story time with Blacklist. The rest of this will be the actual review, all right? So yeah, I forgot where I was at first. So Miyuki's round, all right, in the prelims, right? At first things were super close. There were 3 different rounds here in the prelims. The first round Miyuki was losing. The second round is when we see she has this really small lead. But after that, she decides to go to Tatsuya, get his permission, and she uses flying magic and completely dominates everybody pretty much. And a lot of people were surprised about this, which is obvious. You know, it was only released a month ago, so how do these guys have it so soon? You know, and we saw the reactions of a bunch of strangers, which I liked, but we didn't see the reactions of many first high people. We only saw Mayumi and Mari for a split second. I wanted to see Asusa's reaction, and I say that in my live reaction to this. I wanted to see her reaction. All right, I wanted to see Kirihara, Hatori, Kei, Kanon, Erika, Leo, Mikihiko, Mizuki, Honoka. Not Shizuku, because Shizuku actually already knew about this, which they didn't. They just completely skipped this part too. But Shizuku, from her training with Miyuki and Tatsuya together, she already knew what Tatsuya's plan for Miyuki was, what their secret weapon was. So she already knew, so she wouldn't have been surprised either way. But I still wanted to see reactions from other people, but oh well. Alright. Miyuki wins, and the No-Head Dragon guys are like, you know what? Screw this. We're just gonna get the whole freaking tournament canceled. That way, it'll be impossible for First High to win. Alright? So they have this generator. Right, try and kill a couple hundred people with his bare hands. And Yanagi, the first guy he attacks is Yanagi. And you know, this dude Yanagi just threw him, just flung him out of the building. Jumped down, landed on his feet, no broken bones or anything, alright? So clearly there's something up with this dude, alright? He's probably an enhanced human too. He's just not mindless like the generators. Or so that means he's not just going to follow orders blindly and just do whatever they say, all right? But like the generators would, but you know, whatever. Yanagi ends up taking this dude out with Flip. And Fujibayashi finishes him off with Thunder Needle, alright? So the Electron Sorceress doing her thing, because that's her nickname, the Electron Sorceress, which means she's pretty legit, alright? Sanada was there too, but he didn't really do much, to be honest. He was just talking the whole time. And later, the finals for Mirage Bat happened. Those tournament guys leaked the magic sequence for flying type magic, so because all the other schools were complaining about cheating and blah 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 blah. The point is, it doesn't matter what they did. Them having the flying type magic did absolutely nothing because they hadn't trained with it, they weren't used to it, and they didn't know how to use it the right way. So they ended up getting tired out really, really quickly, and just then the safety mechanism had to come in, because if not, they would have just fallen because they were too tired to activate the magic anymore. Right? So Miyuki was the last one standing, and she wins. And yeah, that's that. Right? I guess for this episode, I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. Well, I'll give it an 8. Why not? You know, why not? What does it hurt? Whichever one you prefer, 7.5 or 8, it doesn't really matter to me. Just one of those two. I'll give it an 8. Why not? Why not? All right. But yeah, that's that. Oh, Jesus. Oh, wow. 32 minutes. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay. Depending on how long my reaction is, since I haven't made it up yet, I've recorded it, I just haven't edited it and put it all together and stuff. Depending on how long that is, I may just add it in at the end of this video, or I'll put it sitting now. I'll just add it to the end of this. Who cares? Right? I'll put my live reaction after this. Next week, look forward to it, because No Head Dragon is going to be dealt with. All right, we're finally gonna see No Head Dragon get dealt with. So I won't explain how it happens, what the outcome is. I won't explain that. All I'll say is that there's gonna be a conflict between No Head Dragon and other people. That's all I'll say. All right, but I look forward to that next week. And the 9 schools competition is coming to a close. Next week will either be the last episode or the second to last episode, one of those two. So soon we'll be getting into Yokohama, which is one of the best arcs in the series because that has the most action in it. I know some people complain that there isn't a lot of action in the series, but Yokohama has a lot more more action than like the last 2 arcs combined. So look forward to that. And that's that, you guys. I'll put my live reaction up after this, and yeah, rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.